Hello, fellow students. I am going to cover the qualified dividends and capital gains worksheet that is used to answer line number 16 on Form 1040. I'm currently a taxation student, just taking an individual taxation class, hoping to learn some tax preparation skills. I don't claim to be an expert, not a CPA, not a teacher, I'm not a tax accountant or anything like that. I just wanted to share a couple things I've learned in the course in the hopes that it will help other students who have had some of the same struggles that I've had this semester. The tax forms and calculations I'm going to be using are based on 2021 tax year. And so let's go ahead and get started. First of all, one of the things that caused confusion early in the course for myself and others was trying to figure out the number that goes in line 16 of 1040, particularly if you have capital gains or qualified dividends. The first inclination is to take line 15 of line 1040, look up that number in the tax tables, or do the calculations that are required if the taxpayer makes over $100,000, and figure the tax on the number in line 15 and enter that number on line 16. Well, that's a no-go if the person has qualified dividends or capital gains. If they do, you need to fill out the qualified dividends and capital gains worksheet, which is found in the 1040 instructions way down in there. There's a section in there where you can copy or where you can do the calculations, but it's not really a form that you can work in. It's kind of a pain. So if you can print out the page and then use a calculator and fill in the numbers. You can just print that single page and do it that way. But it seems like every time I do it, I make at least one mistake in the calculations, and I end up spending an hour on that form. So maybe you're better at it than I am. So if you are, feel free to do it that way. But I prefer to figure out the tax number that goes in line 16 using the qualified dividends and worksheet or capital gains worksheet by creating my own Excel sheet, which I copied the text directly from the 1040 instructions and just pasted it directly into Excel, and then just did some basic formatting. If you're at all capable of doing some basic formatting in Excel, then you should be able to recreate this worksheet. And so I just wanted to show you what I did. It's quite simple, but you may not be familiar with some of the formulas that you can use to make this work. So first I got everything in. I removed all the dashes and blank lines, where you would enter a number from the right side of the form, and I'm just going to use cells. I highlighted all the cells, or I put thick borders around all the cells where an entry is required, and I filled in all the cells with gray fill where there's a formula so that I won't, so I'll remember not to type anything into those cells. So for example, there's a formula here, here. All these cells that are gray, I'm not going to enter any numbers in there. Those are already filled in. So as you can see, there's only a few numbers that need to be filled in. And all the formulas are actually in there already so that I don't have to do the calculator work anymore. And it's much faster and less likely I'm going to make a mistake. So I'll just show you the formulas real quick so that you can recreate if you wish. Obviously the first number is just entered in from line 15 of line 1040. Same with number 2. Line number 2 is entered in from line 3A of 1040, which is the qualified dividends. If you look at up here on 1040, qualified dividends, line 3A. So, and then it asks if I'm going to be filling out a Schedule D. In this particular example, the answer is yes, I am filling out a Schedule D. So it wants to know in Schedule D what the smaller of line 15 or line 16 is. So in the example I'm working on, I had filled out Schedule D already. Don't need to show it here. If you're doing homework or if you're doing your own taxes, you will have already done that, and you can just enter your number from line 15 or 16, the smaller, into this cell. So line 15, which is where the first formula comes into play. And what they're asking for is you to add line 2 and 3. So either one of these cells could be line 3. You're only going to have a number in one or the other. And then, of course, up here, 1350, that's line 2. So if you just put in a simple sum calculation to add up all of these cells, you're going to end up getting a little row 12 also, but you're not going to be entering anything into that cell. So Doesn't matter, there should be only two numbers that are part of the calculation, but it's going to look at all four of these cells and it's going to enter in the total, which is 2350. And then the next calculation is to enter in, you want to subtract line 4 from line 1, which is line D15 from line D10, or cell D15 from cell D10, at least in my worksheet. And if you set yours up with all the same rows and everything, your formulas will be the same. But what I did is I entered in a formula where it calculates the maximum, so it's going to enter in, it's never going to enter in a number lower than 0, because it says if it's less than 0 or less, enter 0. So by entering in equals max, parentheses 0, comma D10 minus D15, it's going to enter in either D10 minus D15 or 0. It's going to enter the greater of this, whichever number is greater. So if D10 minus D15 becomes a negative number, it's going to enter in the greater number, which is 0. Then I go down to line 17, which is line number 6, I should say. Sorry, I'm using the rows. Line number 6 of the form, you're going to enter in the appropriate answer, which is provided to you already here based on the filing status. So in my case, I entered in $40,400 for the single taxpayer. And then for line number 7, I'm going to enter in the smaller of line 1 or line 6. So line 6 is here, which is cell D17, and line 1 is D10. I want the smaller of the two. So I put in, I want the minimum equals the minimum, the smaller of the two numbers, D10 or D17. Same thing happens here, except this time it's going to be lines 5 or line 7, which works out to be D21 or D16. So the minimum, it's going to put in the smaller of the two numbers. And then on line number 9, I'm going to subtract line 8 from line number 7. Line number 8 is cell D22, and line number 7 is cell D21. So I'm subtracting line 8 from line 7. So it's important that you put the cells in the right order. Line 8 is D22, which is being subtracted from D21. Don't need to enter anything for the fact that there's a 0 taxation on that number. That's just informative, but no calculation required. On line 10, you're going to enter the smaller of line 1 or 4. So again, we're going to enter a minimum of D10 or D15, which is 85,150, or line 4 it says, which is D15, 2350. So it's going to enter the smaller of the two numbers, which is 2350. Then for line number 11, you're going to enter the amount from line 9. So that one's easy. You just tell it to equal D23. D23 is line 9 right here, D23. So just tell Excel for that cell to equal D23. So whatever you put in here, for example, if I put a 5 here, it's going to put a 5 here. So whatever you put in there is what it's going to enter. It's just going to match it. Then for line 12, you're going to subtract line 10 from line 11, or excuse me, subtract line 11 from line 10. So line 11 is D25 and line 10 is D24. So I'm going to subtract D25 from D24. And then I'm going to enter in another number based on the information provided in the worksheet. And then again, this taxpayer is single, and this is tax year 2021. I'm going to enter in $44,550. And then again, another minimum calculation. I'm going to enter the minimum of line 1 or line 13. So D10 or D27. Line 13 is D27. Line 1 is D10. So it's going to take the smaller of the two numbers and put it in there. And then I'm going to add lines 5 and 9. Line 5 and 9 works out to be 82,800 because one of them is a 0. There's the formula D16 plus D23. And then I'm going to subtract line 15 from line 14. So again, I'm going to subtract D15, or excuse me, D33 from D32. So D32 minus D33. But the difference here is I want it to not go below 0. If it's 0 or less, I want it to be 0. So it's going to put in, again, the maximum of 0 or D32 minus D33. So if the number becomes 0 or less, it's just going to show 0. If it's greater than that, if D32 minus D33 is greater than that, it'll enter that number. So the maximum will keep it from going below 0. Then I'm going to enter, for line 17, enter the smaller of line 12 or 16. So again, another minimum calculation. Minimum is D26 or D34. D26 is line 12. D34 is line 16. So there we go. Now we get to finally do a little bit of multiplication. We're going to multiply D35 times 15%. D35 is line 17, so I'm multiplying line 17 by 15%. I said 35%, but it's 15%. Line 17 by 15%. And then I'm going to add line 9 and 17. So you got line 9, which is D23, and 17, which is D35. So D23 plus D35 is, so go back up to line 9, yeah, D23. So D23 and D35, so that equals 2350. Then I'm going to subtract line 9 from line 10. So line 9 from D24, D37 from D24, line 10 is D24. And then multiply line 20 right here by 20%. So D38, which is line 20 times 20%, or 0.2. There's nothing in line 20, so on line 20, so it's going to be a 0. And then here's where you go figure in the tax. So I added these two cells. This is not going to come in automatically when you copy and paste, but I didn't want to have to scroll back up and look at these numbers. So this is just equal to D16. D16 is line 5. So it says to figure the tax amount on line 5. So I just have line 5 right here repeated so that I can see it. I did the same thing here. It's looking at line 1, 85,115. Cell D10 here. So that's just so that I don't have to scroll back up and look at the numbers. It's just repeating these numbers. So now you need to figure the tax using the tax chart and figure out what the tax is on this number and enter it here, and figure out what the tax is on this number and enter it here. For this calculation on line 23, it's just as simple as adding line 18, 21, and 22. So 36, 39, and 40 are the cells. D36, 39, and 40. There's no formula. The only formula in these two cells is to make it equal the other numbers. There's no calculation taking place. It's just equaling the others. And then the last calculation is to enter the smaller of line 23 or line 24. In this case, it's 14,322, but this is another minimum calculation. Minimum D41, comma, D42, and then that is the tax number, the tax amount that will go on line 16 of line 1040. So I hope that helps. Feel free to give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Hopefully I can post some more videos. If you find this one helpful, you might find some of the other ones helpful. Good luck in your class or on your taxes.